Welcome to MT Mentor, where we fill our cups and share our wisdom together. I am your host, Jennifer Hicks, and I am a board certified music therapist and licensed educator with over 20 years of experience as a clinician, educator, supervisor, and mentor. You can learn more about me and our MT Mentor podcast and membership group on my website at www.joyfulnoisesllc.com. You can click on the link at the bottom of the homepage to receive a free infographic and periodic updates, including previews of upcoming podcast guests and episodes. It is an honor to welcome our guest mentor for this episode, Amy Furman. Amy Furman, MMMTBC, has led the development of the Minneapolis Public School Music Therapy Program, which currently has 7 music therapists. Her specialties include students with ASD, English learners, and inclusion mainstreaming in the music classroom. She served as a state mentor for Minnesota music educators in the areas of urban education and special needs students. A past president of the American Music Therapy Association, Amy has written articles for professional journals, music therapy monographs, and book chapters. She has presented nationally and internationally on music and special learners for a variety of organizations, including the World Federation of Music Therapy, the International Society for Music Education, and the American Orff Schulwerk. Welcome, Amy. We are going to start by just giving you an opportunity to share with our listeners a little bit about your extensive music therapy journey leading up to and including the work that you do now.
I think it's really important for people to know that I started out working with adults. I started out in adult mental health for my internship and worked first in Iowa in a program for adults, and it was really innovative. There were apartments and group homes and a sheltered workshop, and it was great. And I then moved to California, and I worked for the Stockton State Hospital program, and first in a program for individuals who'd gone to the community and didn't do well, and then realized at the end of the hall there was a door that nobody ever went through, and it was folks who were dually diagnosed and considered dangerous to themselves and others. And so I worked in that program. And then when I moved to Florida, I really wanted to be back in the community. And so I worked for an association for citizens, and it was the only program in the county after the schools. So we had people from 19 to 76.
Wow.
And just served anybody and everybody. And I think one of the most defining moments in my career was meeting a young man who'd lived on grandma's farm his whole life and had never had any services. And I took him under wing. And so then when I moved to Minnesota, I just really wanted to start early. He had just painted the picture for me of how important it was to start early. And so all of that experience comes to bear now in terms of working for a long time with early childhood. But now I almost work with, again, more middle school, high school, and the whole range. So I go into all of that to say to music therapists, you got to be flexible, and what you're interested in may change, and you have to know how to learn. And so, there's not one way. And the whole time, it's just been very interesting, challenging, and satisfying.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Amy. You and I have been friends and colleagues for years, and I did not know that about you. I know you with your expertise in the schools right now, and it's so much fun to get to learn about that history, because I do know that there's students who often ask, if the decision they make about their internship will determine the entire scope of their career and some of those pieces. And so I think it's always fascinating to hear that journey and how each experience led to the next one and provided you with the expertise and the wisdom and the questions that you wanted to learn more about, and how important just that ability to adapt and continue learning has been for you. That's wonderful.
And the neat thing is, by being frankly, an AMTA member or an NAMT member or
Mhm.
whatever your professional organization was and now is, there are people that I've known from all those different settings that I continue to
Mm.
see. And in getting ready to think about this, I was just thinking, Barb Royer and I were both in the same little town in Iowa City, in Iowa, Dubuque, Iowa. And,
Mhm.
she's in California and I'm in Minnesota now, but we can still connect.
Oh, yeah, and that is such an important piece of being a part of the associations is being able to connect and stay connected with people as you continue to learn and grow. And both of us were part of NAMT. If you're listening and aren't familiar with the history of our organizations, the National Association of Music Therapy, before we unified with the American Association of Music Therapy and became AMTA, and our profession has evolved a lot throughout that unification process, and it continues to. How have you seen our profession evolve over the years?
I think it has been amazing to see the amount of research that is
Mm.
now available.
Mhm.
Um, the first committee I was ever asked to serve on was actually the group that looked at moving the national office.
Mm.
And so the fact that we are in Washington, D.C., and we have people like Judy Simpson and Rebecca
Yeah.
Preddy representing us at all different places and making sure the words music therapy are heard. The
Mhm.
difference for me in now being able to go somewhere and say, oh, I'm a music therapist, and have people say, oh, my niece is, or, oh, there was someone in my mom's hospice program and it was fabulous. And
Mhm.
just to catch the things on the radio or on the news or pictures of where music therapy is represented, that has been a huge change in the last number of years, and it's really wonderful to see.
Oh, absolutely. When I first got my degree, I had to get the dual major with music education because they didn't know if they could guarantee that I'd have a position as a music therapist. And I know that there's still frustration with music therapists not being recognized, and I know we still have advocacy work to do. And I always appreciate the perspective that you bring and those of us with years and years and years of experience to be able to look back and see how far we have come and to really appreciate and honor that as well. And so, as we continue to evolve and move forward, what are your hopes and dreams for the future of music therapy?
I think that continued research to document the effect, the what what a what you can now tell people's brains are doing, and
Yeah.
that impact of music is just really amazing, combined with the therapeutic relationship and the difference that we can make for such a range of individuals. Um, and that ones need to develop expertise in multiple areas. Um, Autism comes to mind.
Mhm.
There's just so much to know now.
Mhm.
And we figured it out along the way. And I think that's one of the most exciting things is that as a music therapist, throughout my career, I've tended to have people say, "We're not sure what to do with this person," and that has probably been one of the strongest reasons that our program has grown. Is that
Mhm.
we take those students who aren't making progress and say, yeah, we can work this out, we can figure something out, we can help and make a difference.
Mhm.
And so I just see us prepared on so many areas,
Yeah.
whether it's with veterans, goodness, and hospice.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
any place someone has an interest or a concern, I think we need a music therapist there looking at the research.
We can make a difference. Yeah. Well, you have made a big difference in my life and have been a mentor for me, encouraging both me and others, many others in our field, to get involved and to be a part of helping to move our profession forward and to be intentional about that through service with AMTA. We already mentioned our American Music Therapy Association, and for our profession, whether that's at the state, regional, national, or international level. So, what do you want the students and professionals listening to know about the role of service in music therapy?
Hmm. Well, I think service always comes from a place of having seen a need and
Mm-hmm.
wanting it to be better for someone else, whether it comes under wanting something to be different for students.
Mm-hmm.
I was really frustrated that I had to take I wanted trap set lessons, and I had to
Mm.
figure out how to work that in or do it extra, and so then you turn around and you say, who figures out what people have to take? We gotta work on this, because the clinical needs need to drive things forward, that
Mm-hmm.
clinical understanding. And so I think that's just a really important part of why you do service, is because you see a need and you think you might have an idea that to make it better, or you're not sure what to do and you want to be part of a team that helps things be different and better.
Yeah. I
That's
love that. And I do agree with you that that is so important, particularly in an organization that is so volunteer driven, to find those areas about which you are passionate about, the areas where you want to be a part of that intentional growth, and to volunteer there, and to start where you're at. And you never know where it'll end up. And
that's true. And it should take you different places, because
Mhm.
I really don't think people should get stuck necessarily in one thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For those of you listening who don't know, my first service role for the association was on a state level. I was our PR person for the state association here in Minnesota. And Amy happened to be a part of the board at that time. And that's part of where we got to know each other. And from there on, she and others have encouraged me. And I think that is so important too. I know that made a difference for me to have those words of encouragement from you and from others. And I think that's such an important piece that we do moving forward, is encouraging others to step forward and serve and share their wisdom and expertise. So, who has encouraged you, Amy? Who has been one of your mentors in this journey?
I was thinking about this and I realized I just have a whole realm of them from
That's a
over
good
time.
thing.
Um, and some of them, of course, people you take classes from, but then other folks. Alicia Clare has been
Mhm.
just a fabulous mentor, colleague, friend. Um,
Yeah.
and it's that changing role is what I thought about really for music therapy. Um, Suzanne Hanser. We
Mhm.
go back decades. And it's just so wonderful to have that ongoing friend and experience. People
Yeah.
like Mariana Mack and Marcia Humpel. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes, you have a colleague and then you're doing something and you kind of need a mentor. And you
Yeah.
say, you know what? I want to figure out how to do this better. And so you reach out to some of those people and say, I need some help with this.
Mhm.
And the wonderful thing is, some of the people that are now my colleagues in Minneapolis at
Mhm.
one time were students. And one of them was reminding me, remember when we were on this airplane flight and the plane didn't go and you helped us do it? And it's like, I forgot that was because they're such a colleague to me now.
Yes.
And that's to me part of the excitement and
Oh.
the enjoyment about the
Mhm.
process of getting to see people over time and see where they develop an expertise.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I always tell students and interns to be aware when you're reaching out, whether that's for an observation or a practicum or an internship, to understand that those connections are ones that are going to last a lifetime. Even if the response you get is a no, that is still going to be your colleague someday. And it is really important to be aware in a field that is as small as ours, that those relationships really are important, and that they do evolve and change. And as you said, I know I've had that where as well, where I have friends and colleagues who then become teachers or mentors, and vice versa, and back and forth, and students who are now dear friends and colleagues. And it is fun to be a part of that, and see that growth. When I look at growth in my life too, I know a lot of that has been because of my willingness to let go of some past beliefs and habits and try to integrate some new ones, and to continue growing myself. What is a new or a changed belief or habit that has improved your life, Amy, and helped you to grow?
I think it's really important to 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 maintain that willingness to try.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Given distance technology and distance learning, I think we have all added, I hope, to our repertoire of how can I do this? How do I emote across the screen
Mm,
and get that connection? And then what new skills do I need? And this may be more
yes.
specific than you want to be, but
Go
because of
for it.
COVID and
Hmm.
because of virtual music therapy and in working this way, how do I, right now my biggest thing is how do you create a sense of group with the people? And it has, when one of the key things in music therapy, especially in the schools, is creating that sense of group and sharing and passing instruments and listening, and how do you do that
Yeah.
virtually and really trying, playing with it hard, working
Mhm.
very hard on it. I feel, again, really fortunate that our group, we collaborate, we meet, we talk, we say, what about this, try this. And I think
Mhm.
that's one of the nicest things about having, being a music therapist, and that it's not just music therapists. When you're asking about mentors, I
Yeah.
think way back, and I think about some of the speech and language clinicians I have worked with over the years, where I feel like I learned a lot. It was a collaborative process to make progress.
Mm. Oh, and that is so important in not feeling alone in handling these challenges and continuing to learn and grow. And I have a feeling there are a lot of listeners who are having those same challenges that you are facing in telehealth, and maybe a little jealous of the phenomenal team that you get to work with and collaborate with. And
Well, I don't want to cut you off, but I
go for it.
realized so many of those first places I was telling you, I was the only one.
Mm,
But I
mhm.
really believe in an interdisciplinary team. And so it didn't matter if somebody wasn't a music therapist. What can I learn from the social worker, from the occupational
Mhm.
therapist, from those other individuals to create my own team?
Yeah. And creating that sense of community is not only important for our work lives, but it's also really an important part of self care, is having support and community around us. How do you practice self care, Amy, in your life? What does that look like for you?
Looks like reading. Even though for a little bit I wasn't sure I was going to want, I mean, so much more screen time. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
And interestingly, my family's always been a very big puzzle maker as a group,
Ah.
group project. I
Hmm.
did several puzzles in the beginning because I couldn't take looking at a screen any longer.
Hmm.
Um, it's hard. I miss making music in a group.
Yes.
Um, I, I, I miss that piece of being able to play with friends or do things like that. So I'm trying to push myself a little more, like, what's that pile of music I've been meaning to play? I heard something on the radio and it's like, oh, I used to be able to play that. I wonder. I wonder if
Pull
I
that
can
out
still
again.
play it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, you mentioned reading as one of your self care practices. So, what are some of the books and some of the music that have influenced your life?
I've just read This Tender Land,
Mhm.
um, which is by a Minnesota author, which is really was really interesting. I read, The Kitchen House. Anything I kind of hear on NPR and stuff, it's like I throw that on the list. Of course, we've all been reading a variety of books in terms of helping us think about things.
Mhm.
I had gone back to Why Are All the Black Children Sitting Together in the
Ah.
Cafeteria, and some other books,
Mhm.
trying to expand out, and look at newer things. Um, what was the other one? Oh, asking about what I'm listening to.
Mhm. Yeah. What
Um,
other music has influenced your
So
life
when I
too?
took your self help take a sip class, you had shared your listening thing,
Mhm.
and I went through that a bunch of times because it was so different than some of the things I've been listening to. I admit to coming from a very classical background, and so I find that relaxing to
Yeah.
listen to some of that because I know it, and as long as it's not Afternoon of a Fawn or something. Relaxing. Um, and so I really enjoyed that. So that's something I've been asking people about. It's like, what's their
Oh,
playlist
yeah.
to listen to other people's stuff to just make me go down their rabbit hole of oh, what else has this person done?
Oh, I love that. That's a great idea. And maybe we'll even share in some of the comments in the show notes for this episode that self-care playlist that I shared, and others can share their playlist too. I know in the MT Mentor membership group that I have, we've been creating some playlists together as well. Yesterday, we
Oh,
created a favorite dance songs so that if people wanted a dance break, we made our own Spotify playlist for that too. So it's a wonderful way to be exposed to new music, again, as you said, to get to find out what other people are listening to, and learning and growing from that too.
because with the new system, it's very hard to get exposed to a whole realm because there is
Mhm.
no B side of
Yeah.
of the record
Yes.
or no
Yes.
rest of the CD or anything.
Yeah.
And so you tend to just get these snippets as opposed to a whole set. And so I think that's a great idea to share some of those.
I
I'm
love
going to
that.
sign up and look.
We'll be sharing some of them away. Oh, and feel free to add yours too if you're listening to this podcast. So, Amy, what did you decide on for a theme song? If you had a theme song, what would it be?
It's so interesting because it's changed over the years, and you can tell I lived in different places in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were talking before that I have always liked "Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Round,"
Mm-hmm.
just to remind yourself that you have to keep going no matter how things are.
Yeah.
But on your playlist, I had listened to a whole lot, moving forward with love.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
remind me of the
Yeah. Lead with Love by Melanie
movie
DeMore.
love.
Yeah. Yeah. That's been
I'm
a
thinking
powerful one for me too.
I really like that aspect of what all the options and the fact that it was
Mhm.
call and response.
Yes.
Those are my very favorite kinds of songs to use. I see it as building reciprocal language,
Yes. Yeah.
but um, that was one of the reasons I thought that was such a great song.
Yeah. And a shout out to our Black Music Therapy Network, which is where I first heard that song, was at our gathering a year ago at the national conference. Melody Moore wrote it after the 2016 election, but I hadn't heard it until that Black Music Therapy Network and Allies gathering last year. And it was sung call and response, just like it was. And I still get chills remembering that experience, and being with colleagues, students, professionals gathering with the hope of leading with love, and finding a way to make that real. And then Shantice Hunt shared it recently at Music Therapy Association of Minnesota workshop too. So a shout out to Shantice for sharing that with us too. So
Absolutely.
yes, thanks, Amy. What advice? I know that you get to work with a lot of students and interns and have over the years. What advice would you give to students studying music therapy today?
One, enjoy it. And that means
Mhm.
if it's hard, that's okay, because there's some things are not going to necessarily be easy. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, and by enjoying it, you're going to learn how to learn because
Yes.
that is going to be so important. There are so many changes in the medical profession,
Mm.
in psychology, in helping, and helping. The importance of knowing the lens you first look and learn with isn't going to be there forever. It just
Yeah.
isn't. And
Yeah.
so learning how to learn and how to keep an open mind and how to keep going back and making sure something you did learn, is it still correct and pertinent and accurate, because
Mhm.
a lot of things get you know learned, or you think you learned them and it's not correct. And so that double checking yourself, um,
Mhm.
not in a mean way, but just
Yeah.
to be sure that you're accurate, and
Yes.
having having other people observe and give you feedback, because that's how you keep learning
Yes.
and taking the opportunity to observe and see
Mhm.
others. I mean, I think that's one of the most important parts of the music therapy training. We have so much more clinical time than many of the other helping professions or related services, in fact.
Yes.
And it gives a student the opportunity to really take a look and know that there's not one way. I mean, I always thought that was really important. Not everyone can do an internship where there are multiple people, but that was something that was important to me because I realized people have different styles.
Yes.
And it's okay to have different styles. And what works for somebody isn't necessarily going to work for me. And making sure that students realize there's a whole realm of different ways to do things that'll get you to the same place, but you have to know the why and the research and what the best practice is for some of that. And that's what makes, you know, the opportunity to be a music therapist to me still something that I clearly really enjoy. When you have someone come watch a session because they've heard the student does more independent things with you than they do in other settings. You know what? That still makes me feel good. So,
as it should. That's wonderful. And keeping that passion and that excitement for music therapy is so important for avoiding burnout and for just continuing to engage in and learn and grow and truly appreciate the quality of our lives in our work and personal lives, because we do spend so much time at work that if it's not something that you're passionate about and excited about and continuing to learn and grow, that's not good. And so I think it is inspiring, Amy, for those students or young professionals who are listening to know that. And can I ask how many years you've been a board certified music therapist? You don't have to tell us.
We're RMT.
Oh, yes, you were an RMT. I was an RMT first. Yes.
1977. So a long time. But you heard how many different places I was working over time.
Yeah.
And if you're somewhere and you're not feeling excited about your day and what you're doing, then you need to take a serious look. I mean, we all need to do paperwork and planning and different things like that. But then you have to take a serious look about what the balance is and take a look at what it is and what's giving you a sense of satisfaction and replenishing your cup and see what needs to be changed.
Yeah. So students receive a lot of advice. And one of my favorite questions to ask is not only the first one that I did of what advice you would give them, but also what advice would you tell them to ignore?
Probably anybody who says you have to, because I think many of us go into music therapy because one, we want to help, but two, it is a very independent kind of thing. We are not doing the same thing all day, every day. I just realized, I would not be real happy doing that. That's part of why I like this is that I have different challenges. So anybody who kind of says you have to, it's good to play guitar, but you don't have to. There's a ukulele or a mandolin or a harp. You need to have a range of skills and things, but they can be yours.
Yeah.
And you like can figure out what works best for you.
Yeah. And once you learn what works best for you, being able to learn how you learn so that you can keep learning what works for you and keep building on those skills is really important. Thank you, Amy.
And that's how we're going to make a difference in our clients' lives.
Yeah. Any other words of wisdom from you or from someone else that you would like to share with us today?
I don't know. Did you hear words of wisdom?
I have heard lots of words of wisdom. It is one of the reasons that I love every chance we get to connect and visit, whether that's at Caribou or on Zoom or here in the podcast. I always learn from you, Amy.
One more thing for students. One of the things I always ask if I'm doing any kind of interview, whether it's for internship or anything else, is to tell me about one of your sessions or your clients or your intervention. And if you can't do that so that I feel your excitement in your clients' learning and progress, then you need to think a little more about what story you're telling or how you feel about it. Because I think being able to tap into that feeling occasionally when you've had a really bad day, because that'll happen, or something hasn't gone right, where you can reach back into that well or your cup and say, okay, I need to go back and reprocess and think again, because I want to have that same feeling that I had with.
Yeah. Just like for you with that client in California. Those stories that we carry with us are really important for those tough days, to remind us of the power and wonder and awe of what we get to do. And I always tell people it's for me, and I don't quite have your level of experience yet. I'm working my way up to it. And after 23 years for me as an RMT and then MTBC, to still be in awe of music and to still be excited by it and to still be amazed by the way that it can work, and the ways that we get to share it with people so that it can work for them is always exciting for me. Final question. Whose voice in music therapy would you like to amplify today?
I think the clinicians. There's the clinicians. That's the building block of our profession. We are the face in the community. We are the people connecting with the families and the clients. And we're the ones asking the questions and going back to school to say, I have to do a master's on this because I need to know. Or asking people at conferences, I want to know. If somebody watches the video 5 times versus I sing the song live 5 times, what, help us with the research. But I think the clinician's voice is a voice that needs to be amplified in order to best serve our clients.
Yeah, which is what it's all about. And I always see that in you, Amy, and I appreciate that in you and in your genuine desire to make sure that we as a profession are doing what is best for the clients that we serve. And thank you for all of your service over the years to help make that possible and to keep moving us forward and reminding us of that as we continue to move forward together too. Yeah. So thank you again, Amy, for joining us today. Yes. Was there one more thing?
I was going to say thank you for thinking about and realizing there's a need to help folks connect, and there's a need to have information out there. And so thank you for seeing a need as a clinician, right?
Yeah.
And stepping up and saying, I can do something about this, and there's a new way to meet this need that hasn't been done before. And that's the driving the profession forward while you're meeting needs and helping other people. So thank you for just being the embodiment of that whole thought, and putting it into action instead of just thinking about it, which is I think the exciting thing to see in our field. The number, I think that I thought of one more thing. The number of people in private practice, just exponential in the last number of years. And that is just really exciting to see. So, and you're one of those folks, so thank you.
You are very welcome, Amy. It is my honor. And thank you again. Thank you to all of our listeners as well. If you haven't already done so, please make sure to subscribe to this MT Mentor podcast today so that you don't miss an episode. And you can check back at some of the old episodes too. I will tell you earlier, Amy mentioned Alicia Ann Claire, who was our second podcast guest. So if you haven't listened to her episode yet, check that out. And if you want to dive deeper into some of these practices, you can also learn about and join our private membership group at joyfulnoisesllc.com/MT-mentor. All music therapy students and professionals are welcome, and equity-based pricing is available. Subscribe to this free MT Mentor podcast and join our membership group today. MT Mentor, let's fill our cups and share our wisdom together.